To be or not to be. Yo, hello. I've been watching way too much Breaking Bad recently.
My husband is Walter White, yo.
But anyways, I'm Max and I'm going to throw down some theater facts. Oh, look at that. I'm a poet and I didn't know it. Yes, theater, Broadway, musicals, they all have an air of cringe to them, and that's probably why people hate like the new Scuttlebutt so much, or they just hate on theater kids in general, or they're like, oh, I'm never going to want to watch a musical, or they're like hate the moment like Peaches played in the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Yes, it's cringy as we can roll this.
Touch my balls. Will you promise not to tell another soul what you saw? No one else was in the room where it happened. Is that a yes?
Outside, always looking, and will I ever be more than I've always been? Cause I'm tapping on the glass. Through a window.
Did you somehow survive that theater cringe? Well, I'm glad, because you get to hear me defend this type of medium, this form of art that I particularly like. Do I want everything to be a musical? No, please. I do not want to hear like Jon Snow break into like, I don't know, some love song about Daenerys Targaryen in like Game of Thrones. Like in some genres, or like I guess like a thriller, you just don't want to hear like a musical at all. But musicals can be done well. I definitely recommend everyone to see La La Land if you want to see an execution of how you just throw like a sprinkle like here and there some musical songs, but it's barely in the entire movie, and the movie is amazing. So there's one example of that. I want to explain some advantages of musicals, Broadway, theater, all in kind of like one genre. I don't like plays at all. I only really watch musicals, and I think that speaks to many people out there, because Broadway, I think most of its revenue comes from musicals. And then you could go into subgenres of musicals, like there's jukebox, there's original, and then under original there's like rock, there's rap, kind of like Hamilton, different pop themes, so many different types of possible musicals out there, but I'll just group it into one whole category for now. So before talking about why I like musicals, I want to get into my background and how I've started to pick up on this form of medium. And to be clear, I'm a person meant for the crowd, not the people acting on stage. I can barely sing. I sing way better than I did like a couple of years ago, but I am still atrocious, like worse than Lin-Manuel Miranda. And everyone knows how bad Lin-Manuel Miranda is at singing. He's actually pretty decent in my mind, but it's just like a little meme out there about him. But then I also auditioned for another musical, and that was probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my entire life. Had to stand in front of 40 people and sing a song that I've never heard of before, like 24 hours before the moment I was standing on the stage. I had to stay within rhythm of a piano instrumental. It was bad. And apparently I was like super jittery and like moving around stage in a nervous manner. And if I could go do it again, I would be better because I learned some lessons. But yeah, I'm not really meant for on stage. Would I act again though? I would. I could see myself like playing a character in Book of Mormon, like being like that lead gay dude to sing Turn It Off. That would probably be a fun role. And I could see myself doing Hercules Mulligan or James Madison in Hamilton. So there's like certain roles where I could do like feasibly well. So growing up, I went to Disneyland. I watched some Disney movies on stage while Dulce's hitting the blinds little string. And at around age 11, Frozen came out. And when Frozen came out, I downloaded like the music album and I was like singing Let It Go and In Summer. And those are musical songs in a movie. I'll define musicals as something that has songs in it with lyrics and instrumentals and beats that progress the plot in some type of way. I don't know the exact moment that I first ever watched a musical, like, wow, this is amazing. Because I've never had that like light switch moment with Broadway and theater. I've always like slowly warmed up to it. But definitely I can remember Like I watched Frozen for the first time in Rhode Island, and I can remember like just singing the lyrics on the way out to the parking lot after that. And then I watched like the live action Aladdin, Moana, and yeah, just singing Disney songs in Disney movies. And one of the weirdest parts about this journey that I still don't understand, and I would love to ask my 8th grade self like these questions, but one time in 8th grade civics class, the teacher played Cabinet Battle 1 or 2 of Hamilton, and that was like my first ever time hearing Hamilton. I would love to get like my internal brain thoughts streamed from that moment, because that would be very interesting. But soon after I listened to that Hamilton song for the very first time, never knew anything about that or Hamilton or Lynn at that moment. I then, in 2016 and 2017, make Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr Sir my 2 of my top 5 most listened to songs on Apple Music. I didn't listen to the rest of the album, didn't even research into what Hamilton was, but I just kept on listening to these very 2 songs on repeat. Something about the beat and the lyrics, I don't know, they captured my heart. And I guess that was the moment I started to fall into my obsession with Lin-Manuel Miranda. So much so that I waste a Hinge prompt on it. And then a couple years go by, I remember just me and my brother, no other of my high school friends, just my brother and I, we go to watch Little Shop of Horrors, which is a musical that my school was doing. I think it was like 9th or 10th grade. And I really love like the dentist song, but overall, the music of Little Shop of Horrors is like kind of meh to me. And then you could probably point to another point in the timeline of my theater fan catalyst to be when I started dating my ex-novia, a wonderful, exceptional human being, that I was offered to act in the Heights, a musical made by Lin-Manuel Miranda with rap. And then I met a person who also understands like why Lin is so special in the theater field. Lin is a generational talent. Some people can get kind of bored of how much his like rap exposure is in like You're Welcome or Scuttlebutt or all over Hamilton or all over In the Heights. Yes, his rap like melodies and rhythm can get just like overexposed at times, kind of similar to how you just listen to all the Drake hits and you're like, oh, God's plan again on this gym radio. Great. And I believe as old talent shifts away, kind of like Candor and Ebb, they go away. Stephen Sondheim's musicals start to fade away from the spotlight. Could be a pun there. And new generational talent comes in. We're going to get more rap musicals. And I'm very excited to see what's going to come in the next like couple decades of Broadway. Because if you look at Broadway revenue numbers, it isn't going anywhere anytime soon, which was kind of surprising to me, because if you had asked me a couple of years ago, like, do you think theater is growing or dying? I would have said, oh, it's probably dying like baseball. But just like baseball introducing the new like pitch clock rules to make the games like 2 hours and 30 minutes instead of 3 hours, Lin comes in giving grins, delivers Hamilton, which is this 44 song like masterpiece. And Hamilton is forever going to be one of my favorite pieces of entertainment of all time, battling with other top movies and other top shows or other top books, things like that. So from the standpoint, I'm learning rap lines from my Graffiti P character in the Heights. Hamilton drops on Disney Plus. I get to watch it for the very first time, or multiple times. I've probably seen it now like 6 or 7 times. And that gets me into a snowball of watching everything Lin-Manuel Miranda related. And recently, it's been pretty good with Lin-Manuel Miranda stuff, whether that's Tick Tick Boom or Encanto. But I'm going to tier rank everything that Lin-Manuel Miranda has touched recently in another video. But at the end of this video, I'm going to rank every non-Lin-Manuel Miranda musical theater production I've seen. And we could talk about my favorites and what makes them my favorites, because sadly, they do not all involve rapping. So let's talk about some pros to musical theater. And one of them is for sure rhyming. We all can respect hearing like a poem here and then, like in high school, or we listen to music and all the songs on the top charts, they have a ton of rhyming in them. And some of these rhymes, they're corny, just like in Shucked, they have to make a rhyme with corn, and it's like, ever since the day you were born. And rhymes like that, okay, they're cringy. But then you get to like rhyming that's in Hamilton, and Hamilton is just this beautiful piece of work that's just exquisite, sublime when it comes to rhyming. In almost every single song, it is beautiful. Burr, you disgust me. So you disgust me. I'm a trust fund, baby, you can trust me. But yes, the rhyming, just like most songs and most poetry, it helps you to give a little like sputtery feeling in your heart that just sparks a little joy. Another pro of musical theater is that the story lives on outside of the time you're watching this. And for most people, this actually may not even be true. But for me personally, when I listen to something musical theater related and I liked one of the songs that was in that piece of content, I usually go add it to a playlist and I have a whole Broadway Bops playlist. And that way, just by listening to one song from that musical, you understand the character's perspective and kind of like the whole point of that piece of art that was created. Something like Game of Thrones, I have really no idea what happened in season 2, episode 3. I could say, oh, Arya was probably in it, so was Tyrion Lannister, but like, do I know the actual every single detail? No, because it's not strung out into song. And songs are inherently easier to remember. Why do you think we have a whole like periodic table of elements song? Or I made 2 physics songs, well, that was mostly for fun, but it actually helps you to easily remember it. You could hear a song that you haven't listened to in years and still know some of the lyrics. So the main motivation of why that musical piece was created can stay alive through just little lines of the song. For example, in Hadestown, there's this really good song that I did not appreciate until I watched it live called Why We Build a Wall. And just whenever I listen to that now, I'm just picturing just like the lack of hope of everyone in Hadestown. And how we as people, even though we do have these freedoms guaranteed to us by like the US Constitution, we can kind of just be forced labor to capitalism in a way. And another pro is to help build connections into the story, to flesh out the setting, the plot. And there's nothing more obvious than this, than the first like couple moments of In the Heights when you hear that clave rhythm like tss, 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 which is a very Hispanic type rhythm. So you kind of get the sense that you're in a Hispanic neighborhood 5 seconds into the musical, which is very powerful. And sure, you could throw in some like Hispanic type beats into like an underlying instrumental or score, and you can listen to like The Mandalorian or Star Wars movies, all Star Wars examples, but they all have a very impressive score underneath like the actual show or movie. And sure, you could do that, but also musical theater has the advantage of just putting that right into the song. And you can hear salsa dancing in the club scene for In the Heights, or you get this little jazz vibe in New York, New York, which is a brand new musical that just came out. So having music as a tool could really just help set like the year that it's in, the place, and the location. And the next one is related to why I seem to cry at a lot of these musicals, is because the pathos is really just drawn out from the audience. One of my favorite songs released this year is Hope by NF. I mean, what's beautiful about the song is that it's telling a story. Not many rap songs or reggaeton or just pop songs in general tell a story. I'd say very few of them do. It has that typical 3 storytelling process of the setup, the conflict, the resolution. And like throughout the journey of the song, the beat and the momentum of like words per like minute or per 10 seconds just keeps on getting faster and faster throughout the whole song until it ramps up all the way up to the end, and it's just a quick conclusion. So Hope is a beautiful song, and you start to be placed in the character's perspective and start to feel the emotion that that character is feeling in a little bit more of an intense way rather than it was just said in dialogue. So music and theater can really help emphasize the conflict or the love interest or the euphoric feeling that the character is getting. And to me, it just helps to make it more relatable to the audience. And I'll give another pro to musical theater out there. To me, honestly, musical theater is just fun. I love listening to the In the Heights intro song, In the Heights, it's called that, in like the shower or just in my living room and playing on the TV and trying to sing along with the lyrics and like dancing around. To me, whether it's like karaoke with friends or family, musicals, singing it in the car, whether that's like trying to do different ensemble parts for We Don't Talk About Bruno. Like, to me, that's all fun. It's fun in the same way that like dancing to a song in the club. Like, I went to Orlando and I went to Lib and I heard La Oompa in the club, and that was so much fun. Like the Luca step back. And shout out to Bad Bunny saying, "We want to feel that pussy again. Tu tienes piquete y yo también." Rhyming again and también. 2 different languages. That is neat. So that was my background in musical theater and Broadway, and how I still have not seen Hamilton on Broadway yet, but I will one day. So now I'm going to rank everything musical theater related that I've seen, not plays. I'm not talking about you, Almost Maine. All the musicals I've seen. This is not going to include musical movies like The Greatest Showman, which is, I mean, the music's good, but the book, which is a new term. Same way I learned about like melodies in musicals or motifs in musicals. All terms I've never really heard before like 5 years ago. The book in Greatest Showman is awful, and it's sort of kind of morally wrong in a way. We could talk about all the Disney movies that feature musical songs, musical soundtracks, which is a lot. I'm not even including Peaches from Super Mario Bros., which I loved that Peaches moment. For all the reasons I said that why I love musical theater. First off, it was fun. You related to Browser and his feelings for Peach, which was cringy, yes, but it made Browser that much more likable as a villain. We'll start off with the D tier, and that's where we're going to place our one and only musical in the D tier, and that's a Stephen Sondheim musical. I'm sorry to that guy who's like a Hall of Famer in like musical theater, and this is going to be Into the Woods. From what I've heard about Stephen Sondheim musicals, it's just not for me. I'm way more into the modern stuff. Like, if a musical is from more than 10 years ago, I'm more likely than not to not like it. I feel like Tick Tick Boom is like the one exception to that. So in the C tier, we have another Stephen Sondheim musical, that's West Side Story. Then The Little Shop of Horrors, which I mentioned in my background of theater. And then we have The Lightning Thief, the musical. I don't really want to talk about the bad things in these musicals. It's just, they really don't do anything to lift up the book or the plot, and the music doesn't really sound anything special. So going to B tier, 6. And 6 has some great songs, but the book kind of just is there to like string those beautiful like A tier songs together, but the book doesn't really do anything for me, like literally nothing. So that's why it's not like one of the better musicals I've ever seen. And then we have Prom, which was a onstage musical transferred to a movie musical made by Netflix. And it's good, but nothing revolutionary. And then we have Rent, which is a musical that I really want to love, but the music just falls flat for me. I don't know why, but it does. And then we have A tier. Like, this is the tier that I would be very happy to watch these musicals again and again. We have Something's Rotten. The comedy is on point. It's on point for me, trying to make Hamlet, but they make Omelet instead. And there's a whole Omelet song inside of it. And then there's like a whole song that's like 8 minutes long dedicated to like the beauty of musicals, which, you know, that had my heart. And then we have Heathers, which features 2 football players. And the songs there are really, really well executed. And I like many of the songs in that soundtrack. And then we have Book of Mormon, which I just watched on Broadway for the very first time. Songs like I Believe and Turn It Off are like actually funny, and they actually make me chuckle like internally when I'm like listening to them outside of sitting down in the theater. The book for that one is fine, and I don't laugh at all the jokes, but you don't have to. You just have to laugh at some of them, and I do that. And the next one is Dear Evan Hansen. I wish I saw this one on stage, because there's some really good songs in it, like Requiem, Waving Through a Window. I only saw the movie musical, which has a horrible tomato rating. I thought it was decent, but yes, Jordan Fisher for sure should have played Evan, not Ben Platt. And then in S tier, which, you know, this stands right there with Hamilton, we have Come From Away, which is this beautiful 90-minute, like, rapid musical, Welcome to the Rock, about Gander on the day of 9/11, and it tells the stories from different life perspectives, and each like actor has to play different characters, but it's done so well in such a minimal set that the music, the book, everything is just immaculate in Come From Away. Definitely one of my favorite musicals of all time. And the other one that stands right there with it is Hadestown. Hadestown has their revolving stage just like a Hamilton, and the music is really strong too. It has the funner ones like Road to Hell, which to me is a fun one, and like Living It Up on Top, but it could also get very serious in its tone when it gets to like Why We Built the Wall and like the chant and the chant reprise. And the love story is so well executed. I do really love Hadestown. And Come From Away and Hadestown, the songs so match like the story like just beautifully. So those are my tier rankings of musicals. We did a lot in this video, and I had to do that because I had to justify myself spending some money on Broadway in New York City. No, I didn't. I feel perfectly at peace with my decision. I like what I like. I can't complain. I'm sadly the type of guy that gets told, oh, you're going to do fantasy football in a couple months, and I'm already like watching YouTube videos on research for it because that's just what my heart's drawn to, and it's fun. And the thing about musicals is that, yeah, you could watch like the community theater produced musicals, but musicals aren't really found online. I know Waitress Pro Shot is coming soon, and I know there's like other pro shots for other musicals that could come out, and I could watch that. But you really kind of have to go to the cities with the touring musicals or to like West End or Broadway, and it's expensive, so that's kind of gatekeeping that. But if you've never watched a musical, I strongly recommend go watch Hamilton on the TV in a quiet room so other people aren't making fun of it, so you actually pay attention to the story and appreciate those rhymes and that rotating stage and all the characters and the choreography and the overlapping motifs at like the end of Nonstop. Things are truly beautiful in musical theater.
At all the games, this year, just one game I need you to coach. One time, come up with say it with me, a play. A play.
Yeah, I got you.
1, 2, 3, LeBron.
I think I'm ready to buy a Tesla. That's great. Are you making sure you get the 4980s on those methotrexate cells? Huh? Well, you just know aluminum carbide needs to be prioritized if you're going prismatic with the pyramids. Are you talking to me?